What happens when a late-night host pushes too far and a former president decides he's had enough? Tonight, we're breaking down one of the most explosive moments in television history. Donald Trump walking off the set of Late Night with Seth Meyers in the middle of a live interview. This wasn't a planned comedy bit. It wasn't scripted drama. It was raw, unscripted tension unfolding on national television. Before we get into what set Trump off and the exact moment he tore off his mic and stormed out, make sure you hit subscribe and drop a comment. Did Seth Meyers cross the line, or did Trump just lose his cool? It all went down in Studio 8G at Rockefeller Center. The energy was electric. Trump was set to appear on Late Night, and everyone knew this was must-see TV. Their history ran deep. Meyers had famously roasted Trump years earlier at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, a moment many believe fueled Trump's political ambitions. So when he agreed to sit across from Meyers again, the crew knew they were lighting a fuse. Trump walked out to a mix of cheers and boos, classic New York. Wearing his trademark dark suit and red tie, he smiled that familiar confident smile, ready for confrontation. The handshake was tense, lasting just a second too long. Polite on camera, but charged beneath the surface. The conversation started lightly, but the edge was there. Meyers welcomed him. Trump thanked him, saying he enjoyed doing late-night shows because the American people get to see the real me, not what the fake news shows. Within 30 seconds, he was already throwing punches at the media. Meyers smirked, replying, "Well, I hope we do see the real you tonight, because I've got some real questions." At first, it was political sparring, talk of future runs, campaign talk, and broad answers that danced around specifics. But when Meyers brought up Trump's ongoing legal troubles, everything shifted. Trump's tone hardened. The smile vanished. He called it all a witch hunt, political persecution, and claimed no president had been treated more unfairly. Meyers pushed back with details, quotes, testimony, facts, and Trump snapped, "Those people are liars. Bitter because I fired them. I'm the victim here, Seth, and you know it." From that moment, it stopped feeling like an interview and turned into a showdown. Meyers leaned forward. "With all due respect, calling yourself a victim when you're one of the most powerful men in the world is..." "Rich!" Trump's face flushed. "Rich? You want to talk about rich?" "What's rich is you sitting here in your fancy studio reading jokes someone else writes for you, thinking you have the right to lecture me. I've built businesses, created jobs, run a country. What have you done? Sit behind a desk and make smug comments?" The audience gasped, half cheering, half booing. Meyers steadied himself. "That's exactly the kind of deflection we expect from you," he said. "When you're asked about serious issues, you attack personally instead of answering." Trump fired back instantly. "You didn't ask a question, you made a statement. And when the system is rigged, when the media lies every day, yeah, you're a victim. That's not deflection. That's reality." Meyers leaned in again. "All right, let's talk about reality. Let's talk about the people you've hurt with your words and your policies. Let's talk about taking responsibility instead of blaming everyone else." Trump straightened in his chair, the tension palpable. And what happened next would stun everyone watching. "You want to talk about hurting people?" Trump snapped, his voice rising. "How about we talk about how your side has destroyed American cities? How about the crime rates, the inflation, the parents who can't afford to feed their kids? How about we talk about real problems instead of whatever fake outrage you're trying to cook up tonight?" The room's energy shifted instantly. You could see producers in the background starting to panic, eyes darting toward the control booth. This was spiraling. Fast, Meyers tried to steady things, though his tone carried a trace of sarcasm. "Mr. President," he said, "I invited you here for a real conversation, not to let you turn this into a campaign rally. If you can't handle tough questions without melting down, maybe you're not as tough as you say you are." That was it. The spark that hit the gasoline. Trump yanked the microphone off his lapel and slammed it down on the desk. "Melting down? You think this is a meltdown? I came here as a courtesy, Seth. I came here thinking maybe we could have an actual discussion. But you don't want that. You want a punching bag. You want to score points with your liberal audience by disrespecting a former president. Well, guess what? I don't need this. He was standing now, fully upright, towering over the desk. Meyers rose too. The two men faced each other across the stage like fighters waiting for the bell. The audience didn't know whether to cheer or hold their breath. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was a real confrontation, playing out live. Meyers lifted his hands, half placating, half challenging. "Sit down," he said firmly. "You agreed to come here? You knew what kind of show this is. You knew I was going to ask tough questions. If you can't handle that, then yeah, maybe you should leave. But don't pretend it's because I'm being unfair. You're leaving because you can't defend your record." Trump gave a sharp, bitter laugh. "My record? You want to talk about my record? I built the strongest economy in history before a pandemic from China shut down the world. I appointed 3 Supreme Court justices. I rebuilt the military. I secured the border. I made America energy independent. What's this administration done except tear it all down? But you won't mention that because it doesn't fit the story you're selling. You want applause from people who already agree with you." Meyers stepped out from behind his desk now, moving closer. The producers froze. Cameras still rolling, no one daring to cut away. The decision to let it play would become one of the most infamous calls in late-night history. Meyers locked eyes with Trump. "You know what your problem is?" he said. "You can't accept that people disagree with you for legitimate reasons. Everyone who criticizes you is fake news, a hater, or part of some conspiracy. It never even crosses your mind that maybe, just maybe, people have real concerns about what you say and do." Trump took a step forward, closing the gap to less than 3 feet. Off stage, Secret Service agents subtly shifted, bracing in case things went further. "You want to know what my problem is, Seth?" Trump shot back. "My problem is people like you. People who've never built anything, never risked anything, never made decisions that affect millions of lives, sitting there, passing judgment on those who have. It's easy to be a critic. It's easy to sit behind a desk and mock people. What's hard is actually doing something. And you hate that I accomplished more in 4 years than you will in your entire life." The audience exploded, half cheering, half booing. Chaos. Meyers raised his voice to be heard. "That's your answer to everything, isn't it? Attack, deflect, insult. You can't just talk about ideas that you have to tear people down." Trump didn't hesitate. "You started this, Seth. You invited me here to ambush me. You asked loaded questions, you interrupted, you disrespected me from the second I sat down. And now you want to act like I'm the one being unreasonable? I've dealt with world leaders. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals. I've handled pressure you couldn't imagine. And you think you're going to rattle me with your little gotcha questions?" Meyers shook his head, laughing in disbelief. "This is incredible. You can't even get through one interview without turning yourself into the victim and everyone else into the villain. Do you know how many guests sit in that chair and handle tough questions with grace, humor, intelligence? But not you. You turn everything into a fight because that's all you know how to do." Trump pointed at him with both hands, that signature gesture. "Grace and humor? You want me to laugh while you insult me? You want me to smile and nod while you repeat lies about me?" Trump snapped, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. "That's not grace, Seth. That's weakness. And I didn't get where I am by being weak." One of the producers finally made the call, cut to commercial. But before they could fade out, Meyers leaned forward and said something that pushed the moment past the point of no return. "You're right," Meyers said evenly. "You didn't get where you are by being weak. You got there by lying, by bullying, by tearing people down. You got there by feeding people's worst instincts. And the saddest part is, well, you don't even see it. You actually think you're the hero of this story?" The studio went dead silent. Even Trump's supporters in the audience seemed stunned by how directly Meyers had said it. For a few seconds, Trump didn't respond. He just stared at Meyers, his expression flickering between fury and disbelief, and, for the briefest moment, something that almost looked like hurt. Then, in a low, controlled tone that carried more weight than shouting ever could, Trump said, "You know what, Seth? I came here tonight because I believe in engaging with people I disagree with. I believe in making my case directly to the American people, even when I know the host is going to be hostile. But what you just said, that crosses a line. You can question my policies. You can criticize my decisions. But when you call me a liar and a bully on national television, you're not being tough. You're being a propagandist. And I don't participate in propaganda. Meyers started to speak, but Trump cut him off. No, I'm done. I'm not going to stand here and let you slander me for your ratings. You want to know why people don't trust the media anymore? It's because of moments like this. Because you can't just have a fair conversation. You have to twist it, inject your bias, your hatred. Well, congratulations, Seth. You got your clip. You got your insult, and I'm sure your producers are thrilled. But I'm leaving with my dignity intact, which is more than I can say for you. He turned to walk off the set. Running away doesn't prove you're right, Meyers called after him. It just proves you can't handle being challenged. Trump stopped. Slowly, he turned back around. I've been challenged by some of the toughest people in the world, Seth. Dictators, CEOs, world leaders, political opponents who actually know what they're doing. You're not a challenge. You're an annoyance. And I don't waste my time on annoyances. With that, Trump walked off the stage. His Secret Service detail moving quickly to flank him. The audience erupted, half cheering, half booing, everyone talking over each other. It was chaos. Meyers just stood there for a moment, visibly collecting himself. He finally stepped back behind his desk, ran a hand through his hair, and looked straight into the camera. The crowd was still buzzing, still processing what they'd just seen. Well, he said finally, that just happened. A ripple of uneasy laughter broke the tension. But most people were still too shocked to react normally. Meyers continued, his voice steadier now, more serious than his usual late-night persona. For those just joining us, Donald Trump walked off this show after what I think it's fair to call a very heated exchange. And look, I don't regret a single question I asked. I don't regret pushing back, because that's what journalism is supposed to be, even on a comedy show. We're supposed to ask hard questions. We're supposed to hold powerful people accountable. And if someone can't handle that, if they have to storm off and play the victim, well, that says something. Backstage, producers scrambled to figure out how to salvage the rest of the show. Planned segments involving Trump were scrapped, schedules were being rewritten on the fly. Meanwhile, out in the hallway, Trump was surrounded by his team. His press secretary was already on her phone, drafting a statement. His aides were arguing, should they demand an apology? Should they spin it as an ambush? Or let it blow over? Trump, however, didn't look rattled. In fact, he seemed almost energized. Did you hear how quiet that audience got? He said to his team, grinning. They know I was right. They know he crossed the line. This is going to be everywhere tomorrow. People are finally going to see what I'm up against. These media people think they can say whatever they want with no consequences. Well, I just showed them there are consequences. You disrespect me, I walk. Simple as that. One advisor hesitated. Sir, walking off might look bad, like you couldn't handle the pressure. Trump turned sharply. Are you kidding me? This makes me look strong. I stood up for myself. I didn't sit there and take his abuse. People respect strength. He straightened his jacket, glanced back toward the studio doors, and said quietly, almost to himself, they'll be talking about this one for years. Trust me. Back in the studio, Seth Meyers was doing his best to move the show forward, but it was obvious his mind was still spinning from what had just unfolded. He introduced the next guest, a comedian who had been watching the confrontation backstage on a monitor. As soon as the guest walked out, they broke the tension with a grin. So, that was insane, right? The audience erupted into laughter, the first genuine laugh since the chaos. Meyers smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Yeah, he said softly. That was something. The guest tried to lighten the mood with jokes, but Meyers couldn't quite shake the weight of the exchange. He kept steering the conversation back to what had happened, to what it meant. I know some of you probably think I went too far, Meyers admitted during a pause, glancing toward the audience. Maybe you think I was being disrespectful or trying to ambush him. But honestly, I don't believe asking a former president to answer for his words and actions is too far. That's the bare minimum we should expect from anyone in power. The audience applauded, but it was a mixed reaction. Some clapped loudly in support. Others stayed quiet, arms crossed, unsure. The room felt split right down the middle, half convinced Meyers had done his job. The other half thinking he'd gone for blood. Meanwhile, Outside Rockefeller Center, Trump's motorcade was already on the move. Inside one of the SUVs, Trump was on the phone with a friendly news outlet, setting the tone before anyone else could. His voice was calm, confident, almost triumphant. "He tried to ambush me," Trump said. "Total setup. I stayed calm, I stayed classy, but I'm not going to sit there and let a third-rate comedian insult me on national television." He painted himself as the victim of gotcha questions, the only adult in the room who refused to play their ratings game. And as usual, Trump knew exactly what he was doing, getting his version of the story out first. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation flooded social media. Hashtags exploded. Opinions split instantly. Team Trump praised his walkout as a display of strength, a man refusing to bow to media bullying. Team Meyers hailed him as fearless, a comedian holding a powerful man accountable. And in between were millions of viewers who didn't quite know what to think. Some said both men had valid points. Others said both had lost control. Back inside the studio, after the lights dimmed and the audience filtered out, Meyers sat in his dressing room with his producers. The air was thick, part shock, part adrenaline. One producer thought they should have cut to commercials sooner before things got out of hand. Another argued it was real television, the kind of unfiltered moment people would remember for years. Meyers listened quietly, elbows on his knees. "I keep replaying it in my head," he said finally, "wondering if I could have done something differently. But honestly, I think that moment was inevitable." The second he agreed to come on, it was bound to happen. Someone asked if he thought Trump would ever return for a follow-up. Meyers actually laughed, a tired, genuine laugh this time. "Come on," he said. "He's never coming back. And honestly, I don't think I'd want him to." That was exhausting. He paused, looking at his reflection in the mirror. But maybe it was necessary. Maybe people needed to see that. What happens when you don't just nod along, when you push back. By the next morning, it was everywhere. Every network, every timeline, every conversation. Cable pundits were analyzing every word, every gesture. Some said it hurt Trump. Others said it made him stronger. Media critics debated whether Meyers was reckless or brave. And regular people, in offices, coffee shops, online, couldn't stop talking about it. The clip of Trump walking off late night hit #1 worldwide, racking up tens of millions of views in hours. The confrontation had become more than just a TV moment. It was a snapshot of the political and cultural divide of America itself. People were turning the moment into a cultural firestorm. Memes, parody clips, mashups, and endless think pieces dissecting what it all meant for political discourse in America. Trump, for his part, was thriving on the attention. He filled his social media feed with posts about the incident, amplifying fan comments that praised him for standing up to the media. Over and over, he blasted Meyers as a lightweight, a hack, and a guy who can't handle a real conversation with a strong leader. To Trump, the whole thing was proof of what he'd been saying for years, that the media was biased, that the establishment was terrified of him, and that they'd do anything to tear him down. His supporters loved it. They rallied around him, energized by what they saw as a display of strength, a refusal to play by the so-called rigged rules of mainstream media. Meanwhile, the next night on Late Night, Meyers opened his monologue with what everyone knew he'd have to address: the interview. For 10 full minutes, he unpacked the confrontation, replayed clips, and responded to the criticism. He wasn't defensive, but he wasn't apologizing either. Calm, deliberate, and serious, Meyers told his audience, "We're living in a time when basic facts are disputed, when accountability feels optional, when people can say whatever they want and face no consequences. And if my job is to just smile and nod and let that continue, then I'm not doing my job." He paused, letting the silence settle. Yeah, it got uncomfortable. Yeah, it got confrontational. But maybe that's what we need more of. Maybe we've all gotten too polite, and not nearly honest enough. The crowd rose to its feet in applause, though not everyone clapped. Even in that studio, you could feel the divide. And maybe that's the real story here. Not that Trump walked off a late-night show, But that something as simple as an interview, two people talking, now feels impossible without turning into a battle. Without everyone taking sides. Without the entire country retreating to its corners, convinced the other is the enemy. Maybe the real story is that we've forgotten how to disagree without turning it into a war. So what do you think? Did Seth Meyers cross the line, or was he doing exactly what journalists are supposed to do? Did Trump show strength by walking out, or weakness by refusing to engage? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear every side, because this moment clearly hit a nerve with America. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. We've got more unbelievable showdowns, unfiltered interviews, and defining moments from TV history coming up next.